Welcome to Treacle Free Life Studio. If you've ever reached the end of the day wondering where your time disappeared to, if you've ever felt like life somehow became harder than it needed to be, then I'd love to show you a different way of looking at everyday life. Where did the day go? I became fascinated by something, not just how people spent their money, but how they spent their time. Why some people always seem rushed, overwhelmed, and exhausted, while others appeared calmer, more organized, and somehow managed to achieve more without working harder. I began asking one simple question: where did the day go? Life feels harder than it needs to be. Then I realized something. So often it isn't one big problem that makes life difficult. It's lots of little things, tiny habits, small frustrations, decisions we keep putting off, systems that don't quite work. Individually, they seem insignificant, but together, they make life feel much harder than it needs to be. The tiny leaks. I started noticing what I now call the tiny leaks: the forgotten subscription, the overflowing cupboard, the missing appointment, the purchase we made twice because we couldn't find the first one. None of them are disasters, but together they quietly leak our time, our money, and our energy. And I began wondering, what if we simply noticed them sooner? Life taught me the value of small changes. My interest in all this didn't begin with stories. It began many years ago when I was working as the office manager for an interior designer. My boss offered me something quite unusual. I only needed to be in the office on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The other 3 days I could work from home, as long as I got everything done. That challenged me to think differently. How could I organize my work so well that nobody cared where I was working? I became fascinated by better systems, small improvements, and simpler ways of doing everyday things. It taught me that better systems don't just save time, they create freedom. One idea led to another. From then on, I started collecting ideas. Whenever I discovered a quicker way of doing something, a way to save time, a way to save money, or simply an observation I didn't want to forget, into Evernote it went. Over the years, those little observations began to build into something much bigger. Looking back now, I was quietly collecting hidden gold, long before I ever knew what it was. Then the stories began. About a year ago, something unexpected happened. Those practical observations started turning into stories. Story after story explored familiar habits, everyday behaviors, and little ways we sometimes make life harder than it needs to be. I realized something. Sometimes it's easier to recognize our own habits when we see them reflected in someone else. We smile, we laugh, and then we quietly think, "Ooh, whoops, I do that." The world finally came together. Last month, everything suddenly clicked into place. Hidden gold appeared, Treasure Island emerged, the land of missed opportunities took shape. All those individual stories had finally come home. They became part of one connected world, a place where gentle humor, practical ideas, and everyday life could come together. That's when Treacle Free Life Studio truly became what it is today. Welcome to the land of missed opportunities. It's a place where tiny decisions, everyday habits, and little oversights quietly add up over time. We all visit from time to time, but the good news is we don't have to stay there. Sometimes all it takes is noticing one small opportunity that we've been walking past all along. This is Hidden Gold. He's the guide you'll meet through Treacle Free Life Studio. Not because he has all the answers, but because he's curious. He notices little things, the things many of us walk straight past. And every now and then, those little discoveries can make a surprisingly big difference. Some people make life harder than it needs to be. Every day we all make choices. Some help us move forwards, others quietly keep us stuck. Sometimes we hold on to old habits. Sometimes we miss an opportunity. Sometimes we simply don't realize there's an easier way. Treacle Free Life Studio is about noticing those moments. So little by little, life becomes just a little easier. Treacle Free Life Studio isn't another membership. You don't need another membership that leaves you feeling behind. That's why Treacle Free Life Studio is deliberately different. One email each week, usually a story, often a practical download, always something designed to help your money, your time, or your energy go a little further. It isn't about becoming someone else. This isn't about becoming a different person. It's about making the most of what you already have, becoming a little bit more curious, spotting opportunities a little sooner, and discovering that small changes repeated over time can make a remarkable difference. Little by little, real change rarely happens overnight. It grows quietly. One practical idea, one better habit, one small discovery at a time. Before long, those little improvements begin to add up and life starts to feel calmer, simpler, and more in your control. You might recognize someone. As you explore Treacle Free Life Studio, you'll meet people with different habits, different ways of thinking, different outlooks on life. Some may remind you of someone you know, others may remind you of yourself. Not because anyone is perfect, because we all have room to grow. And sometimes seeing a familiar habit from a different perspective is the first step to changing it. Curiosity leads to clarity, and everything begins with curiosity because when we are curious, we notice more. And when we notice more, we make better choices. Better choices help our money, our time, and our energy go further. If you would like to begin your own journey, why not start with the free Hidden Gold Treasure Island assessment? It only takes a few minutes, and it might just help you discover a little hidden gold of your own.